Hello students, welcome to our course Advanced Database Management System. Today's sessions we are discussing Distributed Database System. Distributed Database System consists of loosely coupled right. That means maybe no physical sharing. Okay, database system that run each set are independent and of each other. Transactions of data from one side or more side. Access data from one side or more side. And the distribution of database can be different method. It may be homogeneous distributed data or heterogeneous distributed data. Homogeneous distributed data, all sites have identical software. They are aware of each other and agree to cooperate in processing. Each site surrenders part of its autonomy in terms of right to change schemas or software and appears to users as a single system. And the users assumes that these are a single system. Okay, that is the case of homogeneous distributed database. And in heterogeneous distributed database, sites may be different. Sites may be have different schemas and different software, and there will be difference in schema. And there is a major issue of query processing, and a difference in software is a major problem for transaction processing also. Okay, sites may not be aware of each other and may provide only limited facilities for cooperation because of these differences, okay, in transaction processing. This is the case of heterogeneous distributed databases. And we can implement distributed data storages using data replication, data fragmentation, or it is known as data partitioning, and combination of both. Okay. Distribution of databases can be done through replication and fragmentation and combination of both. And now we can see what do you mean by replication. System maintains multiple copies of data stored in different sites for faster retrieval and fault tolerance. That is replication. It means data have multiple copies of data. For example, we have data of students in different sites. That is replication. Next is fragmentation. Fragmentation means relation is partitioned into several fragments stored in different sites. This fragmentation can be done in two different ways: horizontal fragmentation and vertical fragmentation, which can be seen later. Okay, and the combination of replication and fragmentation. Relation is partitioned into several fragments. System maintains several identical replicas of each fragment. That is the combination. Okay. Now we can see in details of what is data replication. A relation or a fragment of a relation is replicated if it is stored redundantly in two or more sites. Full replication of a relation is the case where relation is stored at all sites. Fully redundant databases are those in which every site contains a copy of another database. Now we can discuss what are the advantages of replication. The main advantages is availability. Even if one site or one a failure, we can get the data from other site. That is availability. Next is parallelism. Horizon R may be processed by several nodes in parallel. The next is reduced data transfer. Relation R is available locally at each site containing a replica of R. So we do not have to transfer it. These are the advantages of replication. First is availability. Second is parallelism. Third is reduced data transfer. Now we can see what are the disadvantages of replication. First one is increased cost of updates. Each replica of relation R must be updated simultaneously, or it may lead to inconsistency. Okay. Next disadvantages is increased complexity of concurrency control. Concurrent updates to distinct replicas may lead to inconsistency, as may said earlier, unless special concurrency control mechanisms are implemented. So it is very difficult to maintain. Okay. And the solution for is that use one copy as primary copy and apply concurrency control operations on primary copy. This is the solution for this problem, concurrency issue. We can discuss about data fragmentation. Division of a relation R into fragments R1, R2, Rn, which contain sufficient information to reconstruct relation R. Fragmentation can be done in two ways. Horizontal fragmentation. In this, we fragment data in tuple way. And the next is fragmentation, vertical fragmentation. The schema for relation R is split into several smaller schemas, that is column wise. All schema must contain a common candidate key or super key to ensure lossless join property. And a special attribute, tuple ID attribute, may be added to each schema to serve as a candidate key. This is the feature of vertical fragmentation. Okay. Now we can see the example of horizontal fragmentation. This is horizontal fragmentation. In this, the account relation is fragmented. In the above, we can see hillside, the account branch name hillside fragmented, and then the bottom we can see the valley view branch name is fragmented. Horizontal one, tuple wise we fragmented the account. Okay. Next is the example of vertical fragmentation. Fragmentation of employee. Employee info relation is vertically divided. And one fragment contain branch name, customer name, and tuple ID. The next contain account number, balance, and tuple ID. Tuple ID combined or is used to avoid lossless join. Okay, this is used as a candidate key here. Next is data transparency. Data transparency means the degree to which the system user may remain unaware of the details of how and where the data items are stored in a distributed system. Normally, in distributed systems, the user are not aware that the data is distributed, and he assumes that all the content are in his system. He is not aware that it is distributed in different locations. Okay. And if the system has that ability, we say that it is data transparent. Okay. This is known as data transparency. Consider the transparency issues. Normally, fragmentation transparency, replication transparency, and location transparency. Discuss distributed transactions. Transactions may access data at several sites. Each site has a local transaction manager who is responsible for maintaining a log for recovery purpose, participating in coordinating the concurrent execution of the transactions executing at that site. Transaction manager is responsible for maintaining a log for recovery purpose and coordinating the concurrent execution of the transaction at that site. Okay. The next is transaction coordinator. Each site has a transaction coordinator which is responsible for starting the execution of a transaction that originates at the site and distributing sub-transaction at appropriate sites for execution. Coordinating the termination of each transaction that originate at the site, which may result in the transaction being committed at all sites or about or all at all sites. Okay. Transaction coordinator is responsible for committing or aborting the transaction which is originated from the site. Okay. And he is responsible for distributing sub transactions for execution for different site. Now we can see transaction system architecture. In this we can see that there is a transaction coordinator and transaction manager. Sites and different can see protocols. Commit protocols are used to ensure atomicity across sites. A transaction which execute at multiple sites might must either be committed at all sites or aborted at all sites. Not accepted to have a transaction committed at one site and aborted at another site. The two-phase commit protocols is widely used. And there is another protocol which is known as a three-phase commit protocol, which is more complicated and more expensive, which avoids some drawback of two-phase commit protocol. But this 3PC is not used in practice. Now we can see detail two-phase commit protocol. It assumes fail-stop model. Failed sites simply stop working and do not cause any other harm, such as sending incorrect message to other site. Execution of the protocol is initiated by the coordinator after the last step of the transaction has been reached. The protocol involves all the local site at which the transaction executed. Let T be the transaction initiated at site SI and let the transaction coordinator at the SI be CI. Now we can see the phase one. Phase one. In this phase one is known as obtaining decision. Coordinator asks all participants to prepare to commit transaction TI. TI adds the records prepared T to log and forces log to stable storage. Sends prepare T message to all sites at which T executed. Upon receiving message, transaction manager at site determines if it can commit the transaction. If not, add a record not T to log and send abort T message to CI. If the transaction can be committed, then add record T, add record ready T to log. Force all records for T to stable storage. Send ready T message to CI. And obtaining decision is recording the decision. T can be committed of CI received a ready T message from all the participating sites. Otherwise, T must be aborted. Coordinator adds a decision record, commit T or abort T to the log and forces record onto stable storage. Once the record stable storage, it is irrecoverable. That means even if the failure occurs. Coordinator sends a message to each participant informing it of the decision, commit or abort. Participants take appropriate action locally. We can see how we can handle the failure. Coordinator fails while the commit protocol for T is executing, then participating sites must decide on T state. If an active site contains a commit T record in its log, then T must be committed. If an active site contains an abort T record in its log, then T must be aborted. If some active participating site does not contain a ready T record in its log, then the fail coordinator CI cannot have decided to commit T, can therefore abort T. However, such a site must reject any subsequent prepare T message from CI. If none of the above cases holds, then all active sites must have a ready T record in their log, but no additional control records such as abort T or off commit T. In this case, active sites must wait for CI to recover to find decision. Blocking problem. Active sites may have to wait for failed coordinator to recover. Now we can see how we can handle failures in network partitions. The coordinator and all its participants one partition. The failure has no effect on the commit protocol. If the coordinator and its participant belong to several partitions, then we can see the following situations. First one, sites that are not in the partition containing the coordinator think the coordinator has failed and execute the protocol to deal with the failure of the coordinator. No harm result, but site may still have to wait for decision from coordinator. Next, the coordinator and the sites are in the same partition. As the coordinator think that the sites in the other partition have failed and follow the usual commit protocol. In this case, no harm result. Next, we can see recovery and concurrency control. Without transaction have a ready T, but neither a commit T or nor an abort T log record. The recovering site must determine the commit abort status of the such transactions by contacting other sites. This can slow and potentially block recovery. Recovery algorithms can not log information in the log. Instead of ready T, write out ready T L. That means log. L equals list of logs held by T when the log is written. Relog, in this case, relog can be omitted. For every in-depth transaction T, all logs noted in the ready T, L log record are reacquired. After log reacquisition, transaction processing can resume. The commit or rollback of in-doubt transaction is performed concurrently with the execution of new transactions. This is the case of two-phase logging, two-phase commit protocols. And now we can see that three-phase commit protocol, more complex, but it overcomes some drawbacks of two-phase commit protocol. Assumptions are no network partitioning. At any point, at least one site must be up. At most case sites, participants as well as coordinator can fail. Phase 1. Obtaining preliminary decisions identical to 2PC phase 1. Every site is ready to commit if instructed to do so. Phase 2 of two-phase commit protocol is split into two phases. Phase 2 and phase 3 of 3PC. In phase 2, coordinator makes a decision as 2PC called the pre-commit decision and records it in multiple sites. In phase 3, coordinator sends commit or abort message to all participating sites. Under 3PC, knowledge of pre-commits decision can be used to commit despite coordinator failure. Avoids blocking problems as long as greater than k sites fail. As long as less than k sites fails. Drawbacks. Higher overheads, assumptions may not be satisfied in practice. Uh, these three-phase commit protocols are not used in practically. Commonly used protocol is two-phase commit protocol. Now we can see alternative models of transaction processing. Notion of a single transaction spanning multiple sites is inappropriate for many applications. For example, transaction crossing an organizational boundary. The organization would like to permit an externally initiated transaction to block local transaction for an indeterminate period. Alternative models carry out transaction by sending messages. Code to handle messages must be carefully designed to ensure atomicity and durability properties of updates. Isolation cannot be guaranteed that intermediate stages are visible, but code must ensure no inconsistent states result due to concurrency. Persistent messaging systems are systems that provide transactional properties to messages. Messages are guaranteed to be delivered exactly once. For example, funds transfer between two banks. Two-phase commit would have potential to block updates on the accounts to involved in funds transfer. Alternative solutions. Debit money from source account and send a message to other side. That receive message and credits destination account. Messaging has long been used for distributed transactions. Atomicity issue. Once transaction sending a message is committed, message must be guaranteed to be delivered. Guarantee as long as destination site is up and reachable. Code to handle undeliverable messages must also be available. Example, credit money back to source account. If sending transaction aborts, message must not be sent. Error conditions with the persistent messaging. Code to handle messages has to take care of variety of failure situations. Example, if destination account does not exist, failure message must be sent back to source site. When failure message is received from destination site or destination site itself does not exist, money must be deposited back in source account. Problem if source account has been closed. Get humans to take care of the problem. User code executing transaction processing using 2PC does not have to deal with such failures. There are many situations where extra effort of error handling is worth the benefit of absence of blocking. Now we can see persistent messaging and workflows. Workflows provide a general model of transactional processing involving multiple sites and possibly human processing of certain steps. Example, when a bank receives a loan application, it may need to contact external credit checking agencies or get approvals of one or more managers and then response to loan application. Persistent messaging forms underlying infrastructure for workflows in a distributed environment. Next is how to implement persistent messaging. First, sending side protocol. When transaction wishes to send a persistent message. It writes a record containing the message in a special relation messages to send. The message is given a unique message identifier. Message delivery process monitors the relation, and when a new message is found, it sends the message to its destination. The message delivery process deletes a message from the relation only after it receives an acknowledgement from the destination side. If it receives no acknowledgement from the destination side, after some time it sends the message again. If repeats this until an acknowledgement is received. If after some period time that message is undeliverable, exception handling code provided by application is invoked to deal with the failure. Writing the message to a relation and processing it only after the transaction commits ensures that the message will be delivered if and only if the transaction commits. Next, receiving site protocol. When a site receives a persistent message, it runs a transaction that adds the message to received message relation, provided message identifier is not already present in the relation. After the transaction commits, or if the message was already present in the relation, the receiving site sends an acknowledgement back to the sending site. Note that sending the acknowledgement before the transaction commits is not safe, since a system failure may then result in loss of the message. In many messaging systems, it is possible for messages to get delayed arbitrarily, although such delays are very unlikely. Each message is given a timestamp, and if the timestamp of received message is older than some cutoff, the message is discarded. All messages recorded in the received messages relation that are older than the cutoff can be deleted. In these sessions, we are discussing this much, and in this session, we have discussed what is meant by database management system and how what is the motivation behind that idea, uh, how we implementing the distributed database management systems, what is meant by two-phase commit protocol, and what is meant by three-phase commit protocol, what is persistent messaging and workflows, how we can controlling how we can handle the errors and alternative models for it, and how we can implement persistent messaging. Okay, thank you for watching.